Hi, I'm Jessie,
I'm Jesus,
and we are.
American accent coaches.
So, if you are an immigrant living in Canada or the United States and you want to improve your pronunciation and reduce your foreign accent and have more of an American accent, you have come to the perfect place. As you guys know, I'm Jessie. He's Jesus. And we are going to have a little question and answer period where we're going to ask each other helpful questions regarding accent reduction. And if you guys have any questions during this, ask and we will answer them most likely. All right. So I'm going to start off with my first question, Jesus. And it is, what are some common problems that your clients struggle with when it comes to accent reduction? And what advice do you have for that?
I, first of all, need to say that I have not had clients per se in a long time, but from the ones that I've had a chance to work with and the audience that I feel most comfortable working with, common issues usually have to do with the consistency of voicing across sentences and streams of speech, especially when I consider my ideal audience, which is native Spanish speakers such as myself, who are adults and who basically have, you know, uh, regular 9 to 5 jobs and just basically need, to make a living. That's one thing that comes to mind usually. If I think of it more specifically, or to give a more concrete example, I have noticed that consonant clusters can be very
Mm,
hard for some people to really be consistent with. And this can actually show itself in a variety of ways. The one that I'm more the one that I'm most familiar with is the consonant clusters at the beginnings of words in Spanish, or means for Spanish speakers, that have the sibilant S or the post alveolar sh sounds. I'm sure you have seen this take place, and even you yourself, Jesse, I believe that you have actually pointed this out yourself at some point during your content. When you have those clusters beginning words, the structure of Spanish basically does not allow for a consonant cluster like that without a vowel sound preceding it. It just simply does not allow that to happen. And so, what typically occurs is that you have people adding an S sound before, like the name Stephen can come out like Steven,
yeah.
just to give a very quick example there. My recommendation for that specific issue is to really slow down just a tip, just a smidge, before you work on those uh, nouns, words, so that you can say them more um, consistently and confidently. My latest reel on Instagram and short on YouTube was actually something that was specifically addressed for that challenge of the beginning consonant cluster in words. And in the case that I used, I went with SM because in that short phrase that I gave there, you're gonna encounter that problem of you're gonna be almost like a reflex. You're gonna be adding that sound like
Mm,
stick, and things like that. So I think when it comes to that, having a very short phrase, and it's not even a nonsense phrase, actually something real that you can say. I actually come up with that, as a result of, well, just basically life. Maybe I can say more about that later. But when you have a phrase like that, take it slowly. It smears, smudges, sticks. You can prolong that S sound just a little bit to stop yourself from adding that S sound.
mm. Yeah, and, like, just practicing, hey? I'm seeing a lot of comments, so I'm just gonna show them up really quick. We got a heart, we got a hi, we got a good morning. It's not morning here, but good morning wherever you are from. I have a good how are you guys?
We're doing good. Thank you for asking.
Good, good. Good afternoon. And then the reason why I brought the comments up is because of this comment. It is something that you just mentioned. If anyone asks on the live, he's ready with
Yes.
some recommendations.
Yes. Behind
Take
the
it away.
scenes, we were briefly discussing what recommendations I personally would make for people that are interested in improving their English pronunciation, specifically if you are targeting General American GA or what you can sometimes refer to as a standard North American accent. I think there's a lot of overlap between the
Mhm.
US and Canada in that regard. But yeah, might as well do this right now. So these are my best recommendations for self study. um, I have used both of these. And in chronological order, I guess I should start with this one, which is American Accent Training by Ann Cook. It is currently in its fourth edition. And then Mastering the American Accent by Lisa Moisen.
That's the one I have too. I was gonna bring it, but I couldn't find it.
Highly recommended, quite thorough in their um, explanations, examples, material. You have plenty there to work with. And in the case of Lisa Moisen, she has a YouTube channel that you can, you
Mhm.
know, go and check out. She has a lot of interesting stuff there too. Lately, I believe that she has been focusing more on the side of vocabulary knowledge for more general English proficiency, which is also something that I am also, let's say, kind of an advocate for. Primarily, I'm all about pronunciation, but at the same time, I also kind of in a close second, I encourage um, the development of your vocabulary skills, your lexical knowledge, if you want to use a more fancy, more fanciful term. I believe that those two are very closely connected too.
Mm. Yeah, but I second, I guess a mirror image. I second that book. I love it. That's the book I bought after my was it before or after my training? Because I was like, I really want to get to know different things, and she explains it so well, and it's easy. It's really well set out. I love it so much. Quick comments. Hi, Miss. Good evening from Italy. So we have some people from Italia. So amazing. And I will answer this question before we go on to the next one. If there's not anything else you wanted to add to what you just shared.
Um, Not right now, just to keep it really, simple and not make that, too wordy. But yeah, those basically those two things that I
Yeah.
mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and speaking of consonant clusters, I notice that so much in my Spanish speaking clients, Spanish speaking followers, people who speak even languages like I'm going to say Filipino. I know it's not called Filipino, Tagalog. I think that's how we say it with the proper stress. And people who are Italian. I notice that a lot. But the common problem that comes to my mind when I think about English learners wanting to improve their accent, yeah, it is. They know how to pronounce the sound. For example, like the TH. If I show them a word, they can pronounce it perfectly. If they are reading, they can sometimes, maybe all the time, pronounce it correctly, but in their spoken day-to-day English, the D or the T or the F or the V, whatever they use in substitution comes back. And if you are this kind of learner, maybe you don't even know that you make the mistake in your conversational English, but if you know that you can pronounce a sound, but in normal day-to-day English, you can't. My advice would be to practice. I know it's kind of boring, it's kind of unsexy, but just getting phrases with those sounds, repeating them, repeating them, repeating them with the correct pronunciation to really stop your native language from influencing. So you're kind of rebuilding those habits so that your pronunciation habits of American English takes over and your native language is less and less powerful in terms of automatic patterns. So that's my advice. And next question, are we ready?
Yes, let's move on.
This is the question I like to ask everyone who comes on because this is something that I struggled with in my second language, in my third language. And even when I'm thinking about teaching it, it was always something I was like, oh, I like to know as many tricks as I can from other accent coaches. And it is, do you have a go to technique for helping clients improve their rhythm or intonation?
It's really hard to, let's say, boil that down to one thing. I think that there's simply a lot of things that we can do. One thing that for me has worked, and I'm speaking from personal experience, is that I believe that there is a theoretical knowledge or foundation here that is worth memorizing or committing to memory. And I believe, for example, that Lisa, much more so than Ann Cook, um, gives you that breakdown of some consistent patterns or rules, if you want to use that word, that are always there or almost always there. And you can learn those things. I believe just simply memorizing what that is will definitely have an impact because you will not be second guessing yourself, when you're speaking, which is something that I think happens a lot,
Mm,
when we're trying to coach people. And so I believe that there is great value, in that memorization, again, of those core patterns, rules, whatever you want to call them. And you can start there. Like, let me give you a very quick example. Lots of words in English have two syllables. And there is a pattern which applies almost, I'm going to say 90% of the time. And that is that when you have a two-syllable word and you stress the first syllable, you quite often have um, a
noun.
noun. Yes.
Mhm.
If you stress the second syllable, on the other hand, then you have either a verb or an adjective. The classic example that comes to mind for me is the word content, as in content. Content is an adjective,
Mhm.
content is a noun. Start with that right there. You can really take this one to the bank. Two syllables, stress the first one, you have a noun. Stress the second, you have a verb or an adjective. It's a near infallible, rule of English stress, of syllable stress. So I would hang my hat on that one.
I like that one. I'm gonna put another one in the comments and then share it. Like, for example, produce is the produce section in the grocery store. You got the vegetables, fruits, and then you have produce. Produce is to produce something. I like that. That's really good.
Yes. So
Nice.
that would be one of my go-to techniques, if you want to call them. Yes.
I
For
like it.
helping with the rhythm and intonation, because I syllable stress is the foundation of all of those things. And there are some rules out there. Memorize them.
Yeah. 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 No, yeah, that's good. Because for those who don't know, Jesus Flores, you can see his name. It looks Spanish. It's because he does speak Spanish as a first language. And yes, his English is perfect. Because some people say, that you need to see a native speaker as an accent coach. He has a perfect English. If I even said that right, I probably didn't. His English is perfect. So to respond to this question, somebody said, "Hablas español?" I don't know who you're talking to, but Jesus can speak Spanish.
I think
Y
she
puedo
almost called me
tratar.
Julio.
No, Jesús.
But yes,
Some of good.
Pancho, sí hablo español.
Ujú. Porque vienes de no me recuerdo.
Colombia.
Colombia,
Yeah, in South America.
¿qué?
Yeah.
Co
Um,
Good.
absolutely. Yes, I do. I do. And I appreciate the compliment. I really do. And I know um um no, I mean it is great. And it's also, I think, a great motivator for people out there to
Mm,
realize that this is achievable. You can make this happen. And seeing others, there again, it's one of those things that can keep you going. To
mm,
have, let's say, people to look up to or to emulate, in what they
yeah,
do and what they have accomplished. So, yes, absolutely.
mm. Yeah, and I think there's so many English learners, even a lot that see me that will say, "Well, I know that having a perfect accent is impossible," and I don't think it's impossible. For some people, I wonder. I don't wanna say it's totally possible, but, I don't think yeah, I just think there's a lot of people that say, "Oh, it's impossible,"
Yeah, and you
and
see,
they
let me
don't.
say something about that real quick because
Mhm,
the my position on that has relatively stayed the same, but perhaps there's more nuance to it at this point. I did used to believe that it was absolutely possible to accomplish a native like accent. Whether you want to call that perfect or not, I don't really get into that. I think it gets too much into the weeds of semantics, if you ask me.
mhm,
The nuance now for me is that I recognize that not everyone will desire the
mm,
exact same results that I have achieved. And that is fine. Not everyone has to be at that point, like in those really top, let's call them percentiles. Let's use that
yeah,
term just for the sake of it. Not everyone has to be at that level. And that is fine. I think that in a way, for some people, coming to that realization is a great load off their shoulders because the pressure is imagined. It's only perceived. It's not real. And quite frankly, in the field of English as a second language teaching, the prevalent opinion is that it matters little, where you are or where you fall on issues like this. I still, obviously, you know, um, let's say, hold the contrary or the opposite opinion. I believe that there's great value in something like this, but you know, let's just say that I have softened in a way my own stance, on the
mhm,
matter
mhm.
because I
And when
used
you
to be
say
kind of a
soften,
hardline. I used to be kind of a hardliner, on this
like
issue.
in what sense?
That I used to hold that what you really wanted to do in order to, let's say, in let's say in the proper sense of the term, that you are fluent in a language, that it was almost, or that it was required that you have a very believable, let's say, native like accent. I used to believe that.
Okay,
Um,
yeah.
over the years, things have happened and I have come across literature and very influential names, in the field that basically are all really pushing in the opposite direction and just moving away, from the native speaker as a benchmark model.
Mm,
That is the prevalent, let's say that's the consensus these days. If you have ever read any of the literature out there on this topic, that is where they are. So in a way, we are kind of sort of, I don't want to say minority, but we are definitely going against the grain when it comes to this.
like by being accent coaches, you mean?
I would say so, yes.
Yeah, okay. But there are people who want that, even if, the consensus is not.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I'm just speaking, let's say, from the point of view of academics,
Mm,
the academia, the academia community out there. They are definitely, you know, we are, let's say, um, I don't want to say polar opposites, but we're very close, to being in
yeah.
that position.
Mm, yeah, thank you for sharing that. Um, my
So what
question for
about
you.
you? Sorry,
Oh,
actually, did you answer this question yet, Jesse?
no, I didn't, but I was gonna ask a question before, but you know what? I'll ask the question after, but don't let my answer influence you.
Go ahead.
Um, you've studied at the same place as me, so you kind of see the structure of, like, what a 12-week program might look like, and usually there's, like, 2-ish sessions that are dedicated towards teaching rhythm and intonation, which is, like, super hard to put everything in. And I kind of struggle between, like, how do I help clients, like, practice it versus, like, teaching? Because if I'm teaching it, I feel like I'm wasting session time, and that's why I'm creating my Connected Speech Secrets courses so that students can learn whether they work with me or not. But I am just super huge on shadowing. Shadowing, but then having something that you're learning at the time. So if you are focusing on, I don't know, like how at the end of a word, if it's a T sound and then there's a Y sound, like what you turns into what you. If it's that, then you focus on that during your shadowing sessions. And then if it's, reductions or if it's whatever. But I'm really huge on shadowing and I'm really huge on, learning little rules, but like I don't know, I feel really bad at I'm really bad at answering this question. I've heard of, like, the clapping rule, but for me, it's never clicked in my head,
Hmm.
even in my second language, but I have one that when I feel like I'm stuck, when when I'm formulating this for the second time in my life. W Let's say your first language is Spanish, which it is, and you're having trouble getting the intonation of an English speaking American. And sometimes I tell them to imagine what a person who speaks English with a really thick English accent would sound like in Spanish. Like, what would sound weird or different? Like, is this a weird kind of intonation in different places? Maybe that's what you're supposed to be doing in English. I mean, it's not always a hard and fast rule, but for me, that was something that opened my eyes in French because I was like, man, like, why don't I sound like a Quebecer? Because that's the accent that I want to have. And then when I thought about Quebecers, when they have a thick accent in English, their intonation would go up certain places. And then I'm like, bam, that's what I want to do in French. So that's not necessarily something that I share with clients. I did once, but it's just, something to think about if it works for you. What do you think of shadowing? And, what's the balance between shadowing and learning rules for you?
That's a great question. I'm gonna say off the cuff that for me, the the theory is coming first, and I would actually put a greater emphasis on it. At the very least, to make sure that you don't hesitate when you are in real life situations and that you have solid ground to stand on.
Mhm.
After that, I don't know really how to feel about shadowing in my own experience. I don't think I ever did it the way that most people talk about it now. I did
Okay.
obviously do a lot of listening to, let's call it native English, but I was not constantly trying to, let's say, shadow in the way that I think most people are talking about that these days. So I don't really know. I don't really have a well formed opinion there. Perhaps if you focus on trying to mimic something very short, like a few seconds long, I can definitely, I believe, see the value of it. Um, what I would say, one other thing I would say is that I think the problem with, or at least the challenge that I see with shadowing someone is that sometimes it gets really complicated to tell exactly and this has been the big one for me, because you can get all the individual sounds perfectly fine, and then there's a problem of placement and
Mm,
resonance. Where is the voice coming from, or where it seems to be getting its power from? That's very tricky, because I have found that not all Americans have the exact same placement. Some are higher, some are lower, some are more nasal, and so it's really hard to generalize. I do believe that there is a um, you know middle of the ground kind of American accent, which is what I believe I have, and the
mm,
placement tends to be quite low. But not everyone speaks in the same way, and I'm talking about native speakers of English. So I don't really know. I mean, it's really hard to tell. I think shadowing really works for
mm,
people that really want to sound almost exactly like someone that they really admire, which I think is actually some of the common, let's say, wisdom out there. That if you're going to shadow someone who happens to be a native speaker of English, let it be someone that you aspire to imitate, not just when it comes to speaking the language. Let's say that you admire them for other reasons. That should be
mm.
the target. And so I don't really know. I mean, I guess I don't really have, growing up, that many native speakers to look up to in that way, in a
Yeah.
way that I admire them for something other than a language um, opportunity or acquisition opportunity.
So, what did your shadowing look like when you shadowed? Like, when you were learning English?
Basically, I just really focused on getting the drills of these books and
Okay.
just repeating them to myself. And then also listening for confirmation of all of those, different nuances when I listened. I always paid very close attention, trying to confirm everything that I learned. And everything that I know now, I have heard it confirmed in one way or another from some native speaker out there. And actually, when it comes to that, a variety of accents confirm all of these things.
Mm,
That's why, for instance, for me at least, the rhythm and intonation part of it, it transcends, let's say, the most regional accents, and it's remarkably consistent.
yeah. Yeah, like, once you know the patterns, like, you can't unsee them.
And it's not just that, it's also that you hear them confirmed in other accents that are really worlds apart from, let's say, what we're teaching. Like, I have
Mm,
heard all of these points about rhythm and intonation confirmed in British, Australian, South African English, even, which, you know, when we think about it, there are a lot of similarities, but there are real differences that set them apart. And some sometimes are quite striking.
mm,
And yet, you can still find those core elements in those accents too.
yeah. It's cool. I could tell you're passionate about it, which I love, 'cause I
Thank you.
love yeah, I love accent reduction and acquisition and stuff like that.
You know what? I
Um,
haven't fully decided yet how best to refer to it myself.
yeah.
I've actually found myself more and more lately leaning in the direction of accent reduction, just because I guess that's what lots of people are used to. But I haven't really, let's
Yeah.
say, ruled out the other options. Like, there's one that I have heard that sounds nice, I guess. Maybe it just, I don't know. I haven't made up my mind on the matter, but some people talk about enriching, accent
Uh,
enrichment. Why not?
I don't
I
know
mean,
if I like it. I mean, maybe.
I don't know how to feel about it yet, but I'm still,
Um,
um, I'm still developing, forming that opinion there. So
mm,
anyway, let's move on to that's number three,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, and just before, I will say people find me, and if you put that in the title of your searchable videos, American accent training. That's literally what most people are typing when they find me. So yeah, that's why I'm kinda like, do I do reduction? But I do American accent training with Jess Coach maybe. Um, I've
Mm,
looked into modification. Modification sounds cool, but I don't know what people are looking for. I think that's why that I haven't decided what I want. I want people
see.
to find me, and I wanna know which word to use.
I If that's the case, then I will
Mhm.
most likely be editing some of my most recent things doing because I don't think I have that keyword in my videos. I
Training.
don't think I do. American accent training.
Yep, that's exactly how people find me, and that's why I changed my name used to be Learn English with Jess.
I remember that. Yes.
And then I was like, "Oh, since everyone's looking for American accent training, that's what I do. I'm just gonna change American accent training with Jess." On
I've
Facebook, it's
actually
Learn English with Jess.
I've considered doing the same to my YouTube channel, but I haven't made the final decision yet.
Mm, something to consider, but I made business cards, so I have to keep my Facebook as Learn English with Jess because if
That's
it's
fair.
different, then it we
Consistency.
won't
Yeah.
find. Okay, next question. I feel like I answered the wrong question earlier, but whatever. This is for you now. What's one mistake learners often make when trying to sound more native, and how can they avoid it?
Mm. So I've been thinking about this one here, and I wrote here overcompensation, and I've seen that happen in more than one way. But I think one particular instance of it was, uh, or what I mean was that I think someone was voicing some consonants that should not be voiced.
Mm,
Let me see. I think that this can speak to this observation of mine. A lot of the time, when we have words in English, nouns, and you have an S letter in the spelling, and you have at least two syllables, you have vowel sounds, let's say on the right and on the left of the S consonant, we are quite likely, or it is quite likely, that the S sound will be voiced. So it's effectively a Z sound.
yeah.
But this does not happen all the time. And I have heard Italian people speaking English pronouncing a word like, I want you to write this one or put it up there for me, the word crisis
Oh,
by overcompensating and turning it into a Z sound.
like
That's wrong.
crises?
Crisis.
Oh,
Now, to
crisis.
me, I see that as an instance of overcompensating. And also, we could even call it an overgeneralization. I might have seen something else that speaks to this question when uh, people put too much of an emphasis or, let's say, power in their consonant sounds. Like, for example, I'm thinking of a tendency to release all the T sounds, or the majority of them, at the ends of words. And
Mhm.
as you know, um, glottalizing or stopping a T sound is extremely common at the
Mhm.
ends of words. It's really hard to put a number on it, but the percentage is quite high of instances where you really don't hear it or you don't hear what you were expecting to hear. I can think of those as examples. Um, how do you avoid that kind of situation? In the moment, when you are speaking, and I guess if you're not 100% sure of how something is supposed to go, then one technique that I myself have used is to paraphrase. So substitute for something that you are 100% sure of instead of, I mean, this is kind of clunky, but let's say that you sometimes hesitate on whether the S letter in crisis, the first one should be voiced or unvoiced. Substitute something different. Instead of a crisis, let me talk about a bad situation.
Mm,
It's again, it's clunky, but at that moment, um, I guess if your confidence, you know, really kind of sort of depends on things like that, then I think that that's a good, kind of like little kind of a survival, not survival, sorry, that's not the right term, but as a technique to fall back on. I think it works. You
mm,
paraphrase, substitute something else, and then you avoid, something like this until you take the time to confirm, oh, so the word crisis is S sound. It's just unvoiced. Don't turn the voice on. It's just S sound.
mm. It's a good point.
Yep.
I think
So
I'm the kind of English language learner where I will say it wrong, even if I'm not sure, and then just wait for feedback. But I like how you verify before. Different learning styles. Um, yeah. Is
so
there anything
what
else?
about you, Jess? So what's one mistake or mistake, maybe a category of mistakes can help as well? Because it's really hard to think of
Mm.
concrete examples.
Mhm. Um, I can think of one, and that is there are many English learners that think if they just speak fast, they'll speak like a native speaker. So I'm gonna type something really quick. I wanna so I'm gonna type it up here. Here's an example. So they might say, like, "What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing?" Like really quick, just because they think that's, that by speaking fast. But what they don't know, some people, some English learners, is that it's not about speaking fast. It's the way we connect it. So the what are will turn into something like what are. Make sure it gets up. The what are turns into what are. And then what are you doing? Or it might be whatcha instead of what you doing or what are you doing. So it's just kind of like the mistake is that they'll try to speak fast or they'll jump into connected speech too quickly when their pronunciation isn't like good enough, isn't clear enough. And then their accent and their pronunciation gets worse. So I think that's a big thing for me. Um, and it's hard to judge sometimes. Like, when is it a good time? When is it not? But if you have other native speakers in your life or you're with an accent coach, they'll be able to gauge, like, oh, we don't understand you when you try this or try that. Like, I have some clients where I will say, you know what? Uh, let's not focus on connected speech yet because I know there's certain things they need to master before in order to sound, you know, clear and to be understood. And I think there might be
That's a
some
very good
new.
one. I like it. Yes, I've seen instances, of that too.
Mm,
Yes.
yeah, and I understand. I understand. I was like that too in my second language as well. We have a question here. Someone says, "What about the T sound like D as in bottle?" Do you want to answer that? Or do you want me to?
What do they want to know about that specifically?
I
I
might want
mean,
to know like why it's not pronounced as
oh,
a T.
well, this phenomenon is quite common, quite widespread, almost universally present in American English and in Canadian
Mm,
English too.
yeah,
So you have the sound being pronounced more quickly in an unstressed syllable. Sometimes we talk about flapping the T sound. There's another term that I can't quite remember right now, but it happens when you have it in an unstressed syllable in between two vowel sounds That's at the word level, and this can also happen in connected speech, as in
Mhm.
the fancy term is across word boundaries.
Yeah. So, like, water, bottle,
And to go back to your
butter.
other example,
Mhm.
water, what are you doing? You
Oh, yeah,
see that
water.
there as well.
Mhm. Exactly. I was thinking water, like, when you drink water.
Because that's
That makes
another
sense.
way that I've seen that you can try to phonetically write what is happening in speech. You can turn basically what are into water, because the the verb to be in the second person are can become an sound, and so you get
Mhm.
water right there.
Yep. That was a good question, though. Good year. Next question for you, because we are hitting the 1 hour mark.
Yeah.
How can someone start reducing their accent without feeling overwhelmed? I have a lot of followers who are just starting their journey. So, what advice would you give?
Actually, this question, I think I'm gonna just piggyback on what I said earlier about a clear basic knowledge, of the let's call them the rules of stress. I think that they are quite applicable, and you can rely on them. And you can just take them, let's say, one at a time
Mhm.
over a certain amount of time. I don't know how long they would like to specifically target one of them, but you can start there. Like, think back to what I said. If you have a two-syllable word, if the stress falls at the beginning, you are almost guaranteed to have a noun. And if it falls on the second syllable, it's almost guaranteed that you will have a verb or an adjective. Take it to the bank. Think about that for a week. And then, you can keep on tackling the others. When it comes to that, again, Lisa's book is actually
Mm.
better at that, at that point.
Lisa, which one is hers again? Can you share the cover?
Yes. So
I
yeah,
forget
it's the
now.
Mastering the American Accent second edition by Lisa Moisen. Again, I believe that Lisa is more systematic when it comes to those points.
Mm, that's a good point. I think what I would say to someone is to just focus on the biggest issue that holds you back from sounding like you'd like. So if it's the TH sound, focus on that. Learn how to pronounce it. Practice it to make it a habit. But while you're practicing it, get feedback from an accent coach, from native speakers, whatever. Because if you practice it and you practice it and you practice it, it will become muscle memory. It will become a part of your new accent. And you want to make sure that you are pronouncing the correct sound. Because if you're pronouncing a different sound, but not the correct sound, correct in the sense your target, then you're changing your accent. You're working hard, but you're going in the wrong direction. So always get feedback, but just work on one thing at a time. It sounds kind of simple, but it's effective, I'd
Yeah,
say.
because I mean, because really the way that we naturally learn things is basically moving from what's clear to what's obscure, and from what's simple to what's complex. I mean, really, it doesn't work any other way. And so the same applies, in this context.
Mhm. And I have 2 more questions. I think we have time. I think we can answer it quickly in 3 minutes, hey?
I think we could. I think we can. Yeah. Yeah.
So the first one is in American with the American accent, the general American accent, which it's debatable. What is that? Like linguistics? What like is it? Sorry. Yeah. My brain is failing. This is the end of the hour. In the American accent, T silent after the N, as in printer, can it sound like printer too?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now,
When
how
the
common this is, this is a good question, because I've seen this I've seen this go both ways.
Mm,
Definitely, casual spoken English follows the example of dropping the T sound completely. The reason why that happens is because all languages tend towards simplification. And so T and N have the same point or place of articulation in the vocal tract, and therefore something like this can be expected. Um, in casual speech, I'm going to say maybe 70% of the time, you are going to hear it like that. Printer, internet, and many others like it. And then you have to account, I guess, for personal taste.
Mhm.
And I've met some people in my life or had the chance to speak to, and by this I mean native speakers, who were far more likely to keep the T's in those words, like winter or printer, for instance.
Yeah. And I think the official general American accent, I think the T stays pronounced. I don't really know, but I know for myself, I will usually drop it. So I'll say, well, for printer, I might keep it. I'll say printer. Sometimes I'll say printer. Interest, sometimes I'll say interest, sometimes for internet, I'll say internet. So if it's after an N, usually you can drop it, like drop it as in not pronounce it, and it's fine. Or winter, you can say in winter, at winter in winter time. That's personally how I say it. So
Yes.
technically the answer is you can.
Yes.
You can.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Oh,
I
let
think
me
we're
say something real
done.
quick about
Oh, yeah.
that one, that very last one that you popped onto the screen. Um, let's just say that the T sound is not being skipped. Well, in this instance, it is that NT combination. It is being dropped completely. Let's just say that T is a very flexible sound in American English, and it has um, I know it has its subtleties. I'm just going to put it that way
Yeah. Like
because I don't like to say
between
because I don't like to commit to that as a rule or as a rule of thumb
yeah,
that we're skipping the T's because that's not true. What is happening is that the surrounding context in spoken language affects all of these sounds. And so T, especially, is greatly affected in American English
yeah. Like when it's starting a word, we'll pronounce it as a true T, but if it's
or
between vowels, it might
in a stress syllable
yeah.
too.
Yeah, and if it's between 2 vowels, generally speaking, it's like a flat T, a fast D. At the end of a word, pause, a sentence, it'll be a glottal stop very often where it's like your glottis, what is it, tightens. Yeah,
Yeah.
it can go
Or
silent.
closes. I mean, it's one. I've always thought of it as that part of your m- throat here closing.
Yeah,
That's one
it's a
way to look
tightness
at it.
there.
There are other analogies that I have used also to try to get that point.
Mhm.
To get a good grasp of it. Like, let me give you one for instance. One way that I have internalized this concept of a T ending a word and not being heard is that the T is being pronounced partially. I like that
Yeah,
actually. That worked for me. And so when I have something like "it's not that great," it's like just a phrase. Oh, it is being partially pronounced because the tongue is in the position to release the air, but that's not happening. So it is partially pronounced.
yeah, it's a tricky consonant, that's
It
for
is.
sure.
It is. It really
And
is.
you're very welcome for the reply. But I think we're gonna leave it at that. If you want to contact and find Jesus, I will put his contact information in the description if it's not already. You guys know where to find me if you're watching here. And thanks for coming, Jesus, and thank you to everyone for watching.
Absolutely, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this live. And yes, hopefully we'll find a way to coordinate more in the near future and answer
Mhm.
more of your questions.
Yeah, see ya. Bye, guys.